What's up, guys? You are listening to HVAC Masters of the Hustle podcast. And this is your host, J Dub Moneymaker, and welcome to episode 138. First off, I want to say thank you for everyone that reaches out and truly tells me how this podcast is bringing you and your company to that next level. As you guys saw, we just had a huge event in Las Vegas with service hero Grant Cardone, Weldon Long on stage. And that was an absolutely great experience. So if you guys missed that, I'm sure you guys could check out all the videos that are posted on social media. I'll be posting stuff on my YouTube channel as well. So make sure you guys check that out. But I believe that everyone has a Spartan in them. It's my job, my duty, and my obligation to bring that Spartan out in you. And man, do we have a great episode. He's no stranger to the podcast. If you want to check out his last podcast he was on with HVAC Masters of the Hustle, go to episode 81. But let's welcome Darrin Dixon into the hot seat. How you doing, Darrin?
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I'm doing good.
Absolutely.
So 138 episodes, man. Congratulations. That's a lot.
Every week, man, they're just coming out. I've never missed one episode in 138 weeks. Talk about consistency and commitment.
Man, we're going to talk about consistency a lot today. So congratulations there. And I know you're doing a lot of great stuff, J-Dub.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, brother. Well, it's an honor to have you back in the hot seat. You've had a lot of things change, good things change since the last time you were on the podcast. And you were also just in Las Vegas as well. How was your experience in Las Vegas?
Man, Vegas was great. We were speaking at the Epic event and had a pre-day event there, and it was very well attended. There was standing room only, and we just had a great event. It was very productive for us, and a lot of people are learning more about Fixify and getting excited about what it's doing.
And that's what this podcast is going to be about, you guys. For all my listeners tuning in on this podcast, you guys want to know about this new software that just came out, Fixify. This is going to change the industry as we know it. Darrin, talk a little bit about Fixify to my listeners, and what is it?
Sure. So the first thing I want to dispel is this idea that Fixify is like Uber for home services, right? It's not. Uber, I think when people refer to the Uber of the air conditioning industry, it can put off the wrong idea that, that there's a software that just allows consumers to all just go out and pick random technicians and have them come to the house. Really, when people are talking about Uberization or they're talking about Uber-esque technology, they're talking about the ability to use on-demand technology, right? So what Fixify does is Fixify is a direct replacement for operating software in your business like ServiceTitan or one of the other products that are out there being used. But the major difference between what Fixify does and the rest of these other softwares, Jason, is that all of this other software is really mousetrap, right? They're administrative tools that have been created for administrative staff for a home service business. And then they incorporate, in one level or another, and some, with one quality or another, they incorporate some field mobile service for the technician. But in reality, all of them really are just digital versions of the old way of doing things, which is where, a technician arrives at a home and assesses a situation. In many cases, we know that's not a comprehensive assessment, right? And that it comes back to what we're going to talk about with consistency, but they're using, in the old days, man, we used to fill out paper forms, right? And we'd fill out invoice, and we would spend a lot of time on that, creating that invoice. It was a tool, right? We wanted to make sure it was done a certain way and that the information was filled out a certain way, and it was a tool to the customer. Today, all of the other software that has been designed in our industry are really just digital versions of that, right? Guy fills out a thing on an iPad and then comes in and turns it at the customer. Fixify incorporates technology that doesn't exist in our industry right now, and that is what we call mobile performance optimization. So if you think about a rule of algorithms that we use and that govern the way that recommendations are made to a customer, and then a complete customer integration to the software. So in a nutshell, It is literally the consumer has our software on their device, whether they're on their computer or they're on an app or on an iPad or whatever they're using. And the software is taking the information that the technician is gathering in the field during the diagnostic process, and it is using that information to make a series of recommendations to the consumer that are going to be enhancing that customer's consumer experience.
So let me ask you, Darrin, what was it? How long ago did you start this project, right? And what was it that really got your ears turning that, hey, we need to fix something that's going on in the industry, make something that the industry's never seen before?
Sure. So great question. So first of all, I'm in my 26th year, right? So I'm an old guy in the industry.
You're not that old. You don't look that old.
That's the Botox, baby.
That's the Botox.
But we do Botox in Florida too, not just California. But in all seriousness, I had a large responsibility in the development of a large franchise organization that I'm sure you're aware of. And we had a very large group of companies that we owned. And I was responsible for the management of those companies. And what became evident to me was that all the training that we did, and we spent thousands, we spent millions of dollars in training. We were a training organization, for gosh sake, right? And that what I came to realize was that training does not create consistency across the board. It can create a better performance in a singular or a few individuals that have a desire to be able to, to perform at a higher level, but it does not create consistency because we're in a new age, right? And we're not in the better trained human age. We are in the digital age. Mm-hmm. And so the ability to get consistency was something that we never had access to because we were relying on the performance of an individual that was completely random. And some of them did amazing jobs and some of them not so amazing. But what we knew was we really did not have an interface with our customers outside of that experience that they were having with that technician, which means that it was never going to be consistent the way that we needed it to be. And, Weldon Long's a good friend of mine. I know that you love Wally too. And, Wally's book about the power of consistency is some of the principal bedrock that we're talking about here is that when we can get consistent performance and we can get consistent comprehensive information into the hands of the customer is able to make consistent and comprehensive decisions.
Absolutely.
And consistent and comprehensive decisions equate to higher monetization of those service tickets or replacement sales or whatever that outcome of that service experience is. And so, after we had sold our last company, I was floating in the pool with a Woodford on the rocks in my hand, and literally thinking about all of my experiences. And I've been very fortunate to work with some of the best people and be involved with some of the best people in this industry. And how do I take that information and how do I make the industry better? So I was no longer focused just like on myself and on my company and how much can I build up my company's value to where I could, either one, keep banking or sell it to a PE or whatever it is. I was looking at the industry saying, how can I take what I know and the challenges that I see that we have, and I want to see scale. My mentor was a man named James Abrams, and Mr. Abrams had a massive impact on my life along with a lot of other people's lives. But Jim was very effective at getting my mindset around looking at the industry and looking at the globalization of our industry and what could we do to impact the entire industry. So that was my mindset. And I just started looking at the questions and the challenges that we had and said, I thought outside the box and said, how could I design a software that would start with the consumer's experience as its focal point? And from there, we weren't very vocal about what we were doing because we were keeping it in the bag until
you kept it behind the scenes
until we were ready to really say what it was. And like I said, a lot of people thought that it was this Uber thing that was all about marketing. But in reality, what we were doing is we were testing to see if we could create an experience that the consumer would use and would like. And so we did. And over the last 11 months, I guess from about July, August, for the next 12 months, we ran a beta test on ourselves. And that generated $5 million in replacement sales. and 80% of all of the replacement sales were highest efficiency systems. So we knew that we had, unlocked and gotten it right. And then from there, we've just continued to build a lot of momentum. We have a significant partnership arrangement with Dixon and Goodman, and their teams are out recommending all of their contractors, dealers to take a look at this software because of what it does. So not only does it handle the consistency in the field, which if you think about it, that's where we make our money, right?
Absolutely.
Behind the scenes is how we make sure that we're operationally productive and that we're efficient and that we don't have chaos in our organizations. But the money's made in the field, and there are 5 key areas of things that happen in the field that Fixify's structure improves. And I'll share them with you. Number one.
Absolutely.
Number one is the conversion to a maintenance agreement. So if you think about it, if your organization believes in a service agreement, which it should, ask yourself, do you have the ability to know that consistently every single customer that did not have a service agreement was presented a service agreement option, and not only presented, but presented in a consistent and concise way, right? Number 2, a comprehensive diagnostic process that is, again, giving the consumer a comprehensive understanding each and every time of what the system's condition is, and then making recommendations to the customer based on that consistency. And then how is that reflecting in your average service ticket? Number 3, the identification of a replacement opportunity each and every time and never missing one. And most organizations are spending a lot of energy and time trying to identify those replacement opportunities. We ask for age on the phone, and then we ask for age from the technician, and we still have not gotten today a consistent way to get it done. Fixify solves that problem. So each and every time Fixify is identifying it, but truly based on the financial condition of the machine that you're there to work on, and comparing that to a group of options that are available as replacements by that contractor, right? So 100% identification and recommendation on an opportunity 100% of the time. Number 4 is average product mix. So, there are a lot of companies, Jay, and I'm sure that you're aware of these, that are out there that are using lowest efficiency products with highest prices, right?
Yep.
And the ROI is not good for the customer. And that's what creates value friction to the customer, right?
Absolutely.
Anytime there's part of our margin that's not directly geared towards what's in it for the customer, that creates something I call value friction, right? Clear to understand ROI to the customer and clearly demonstrated ROI to the customer removes value friction. And in reality, that's what we're trying to teach people to do, right? Remove the value friction.
Absolutely.
So Fixify has a very proprietary algorithm that we use that makes the recommendation to the customer of what's going to be most cost effective to them in a dynamic way each and every single time. Lastly is retention, right? Most companies do not know what their retention rate is on their customers, and it costs a lot to get a customer, and it costs a lot to replace a customer. I was watching something on TikTok the other day from the Home Service Millionaire, and he was talking about not having to repurchase your customers all the time, right? So it's about giving the customer a consumer experience that retains them, and knowing if there's a situation that each and every time you have a service episode, that customer, what they said about that service episode, how they felt about it, and making sure that information gets to the right people so that you're keeping your customers. When you do all of those things, I mean, think about it as a contractor, right? When I was a contractor, or in managing the organizations that I was part of, if I asked all those same questions of myself, right, I would have to answer no to every single one of them, because I knew it wasn't because I didn't have that as an initiative. It's because I did not have the ability to add the consistency to that process that I knew that if we did, it would have a massive impact on our business. So those are the 5 most important things that Fixify does. But I'll add one more to it. The design of the way that Fixify's backend works is coming from a level of expertise of high productivity. So, the feedback that we get from our subscribers that are that are going through the onboarding process, which by the way is only 4 weeks. Our onboarding process is only 4 weeks, and people are astounded because they've come from other really huge, service softwares that they've used or had previously been using, and said, we've been using this for 3 or 4 years and we still don't even know how to use it all the way.
Oh yeah, I hear that all the time.
Right, all the time. So we designed this software with a term called elegance, and elegance simply means that when a software flow is intuitively designed properly, then it doesn't feel like you're using software at all, right? It's called elegance. And so the elegance that we've built into this is based on, knowledge. It's based on experience and understanding how that administrative process flows. And when you can lower your administrative cost in your business, you now have a choice on what you're going to do with the surplus of money, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you look at large companies that scale, they pass those savings along to their customers, right? So they pass savings along to their customers while increasing their own earnings. So that's what Fixify is designed to do, and it's badass.
One thing I gotta say that you mentioned was during your guys' startup, right? You guys did 5 million in 11 months, and 80% of those were converted to high-end systems, right? So for my listeners out there, when's the last time your comfort advisors, your selling techs went out there and sold a high efficient system, right? Because a lot of them are just selling boxes, right? So what I'm gathering from this is helping eliminate what our technicians or comfort advisors are potentially offering when they're just offering box like for like change out, right? This gives them the opportunity for a software program to present to the homeowner the higher end systems as well.
Absolutely. So every single time Fixify software is analyzing the systems that contractor sells and making the recommendation on what's going to be the most cost effective for the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's making that recommendation directly to the customer. And then the customer asks the technician for the support information. So, again, I've been training technicians for a really long time. And every single training that we would do with the technicians, we would always ask this question: if you could get the customer to ask you about a replacement system, would you rather do that? Or would you rather have to go in and tell them that they need a replacement system, right?
Wow,
and the answer 100% of the time was about getting the consumer to ask, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of the communication tools that we were teaching at the time were about how do you get the customer to ask so that you can get the greatest amount of conversion. And it's no secret that the reason that I've been able to build large profitable businesses is because it came from the ability to teach people that. But again, I'm looking at the industry and saying the consumer deserves that. Okay, the consumer deserves to have all the information so they can make the best decision. And omitting information because of any agenda item, whether it's lack of skill, whether it's fear that the customer is going to reject a higher SEER product or efficiency product, it's all the same. The customer is being robbed of the opportunity to make the decision that's best for them. And here's where it all kind of comes together. For us to expect for a human being to be able to do what software can do is unfair, because we can't function that way, right? Our brains cannot calculate in a millisecond the financial breakdown of 7 or 10 or 100 different options, right? So I'm not suggesting that we are offering 100 options. We're not, but I'm just saying that whether we're making a calculation on from a choice of 3 or 4 different tiers or 100, we can do it all in a millisecond, and we can give that consumer that direct information every single time so that it turns the technician into an ally of the consumer. This is so important, not only from a productivity and a financial impact on the contractor, Jay, is that it's the marketing battlefront of this new era is consumer experience. Okay. Mm-hmm. We used to teach, well, the first thing you're going to do is maximize your yield, and then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to start expanding your service base. And then the third thing you're going to do is start marketing for replacement quotes. And then fourth phase of growth in your business is going to be, you're going to brand, right? You're going to put your brand out there. You're going to start to acquire businesses. Today, brand does not mean anything to a customer. It isn't about brand. It's about consumer experience. And so it's consumer experience that drives. And if you think about Amazon, right? When I'm ordering on Amazon, which I do all the time, I don't really pay attention to the name of the company that's supplying me the stuff that I'm buying there.
Yeah.
I look at the consumer experience, and and not only does star rating and all that stuff, matter to me as far as what consumer rating is, but I also look at how easy it is for me to acquire what I want, right? I look at how Amazon's done an amazing job at creating a consumer experience that we've proven, because they're worth trillions of dollars, that this is how we want to do business. And so we have, we've used that same philosophy and built Fixify out the same way. And it's taken us 3 years to get it there. But like I said before, we always knew that this is where we were going, but we didn't world, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing that I wanted to ask you, while you've been doing this for the last 3 years or the last 11 months, really getting all the data and the information from people that's been using it, for my listeners, they might be asking, with this software, what have you noticed the average ticket's gone up on average?
Well, so it really depends on how you're currently priced, right? So describing the increase to average ticket isn't as important as this piece of information, because if you're already selling a high price this or that, then it's really going to be tied to this important piece of information. And ASHRAE says that 80% of all replacement sales are sold at the repair or a maintenance call. 80% of them. Okay, so only 20% of the systems that are sold in the US are in North America are being sold proactively. Somebody proactively said, I'm going to get me a new one, right? Everything else is sold at the time of the service call. 81% of all systems replaced in North America are minimum SEER.
I believe
so
it.
The biggest impact statement, to answer your question, would be if you could take and you could flip that around, and now you're talking about 80% of all the systems that you replace are highest efficiency. What would that do to your average ticket, right? See, that's what's most important. And I can share with you some service statistics. So from a service standpoint, 95% of consumers want to communicate through this device right here. See this thing? It's never further than 18 inches away from me, right? I sleep with it next to my head. It's in my pocket with me everywhere. We get separation anxiety if it's not like right here, right? And this is how we do business today, right?
Absolutely.
This is how I order my food. My wife doesn't even go to the grocery store unless we forget something. It's all done through this. So the ability to give that that consumer the opportunity to direct connect and direct dispatch through this device is huge, because 95% of the people want to do it that way. The other thing that we found was that 50% of the time, the customers still only took the what was broken today recommendation. Okay. However, that other 50% was a very important group. 25%, so half that second group took the service call and the recommended maintenance items, okay, in the form of either tune-up or maintenance agreement. And the other half of that group took the service, the required repair, the maintenance, and at least one ancillary product that was being recommended based on the need of that machine. So by looking at the need of that machine and what it has and what it needs, and being able to give that comprehensive customer the information, we saw that the average service ticket nearly doubled.
That's awesome. Nearly doubled. So let me ask you, what is your goal? What is your mission with Fixify?
Sorry, this phone. Sorry,
you're good.
What the mission? The mission is to create a standard that's lacking in our industry, and to ultimately see the ability for contractors to be able to gain the real value out of their businesses that they're missing in the form of pent-up demand because of the missing consistency of what's going on there. So ultimately, it's about creating an ecosystem with our platform that allows the contractor, the consumer, the manufacturer, and the other peripheral vendors like marketing vendors, tool vendors. When I say tools, I mean, and not necessarily wrench tools, but like other digital product tools, training tools,
absolutely,
and financing tools, to all work together and to be one system. Again, teaching lots of contractors, I've got a vast opinion on this from my experience, and it's this: I admire greatly what thought leaders like yourself, Weldon, Gary, Drew, all these guys that are out there, these thought leaders, yeah. But the challenge for a contractor is when I'm getting information over here, I get a piece of information, over here, I get a piece of information, over here, I get a piece of information. The ability to turn that into a system that maximizes my profitability, maximizes my experience with a customer, maximizes my retention, lowers my acquisition costs because of some really cool things that we built in that we don't have time to get into today. When all of that happens, everybody wins together. And so the ability to give that to a contractor is very important, because otherwise I'm taking all these sound bites and best practices and I'm pulling them together. It's almost like if you had all these different ingredients of things that you liked, but they don't really make one recipe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Really taking it down and putting it into taking all those pieces of truth and putting them into a system that helps that contractor perform at a much higher level, attract technicians like they've never been able to before, because we haven't even talked about that part, right? We haven't even talked about get technicians today. And I'll tell you what, not everybody's going to like hearing this, but I'm going to say it because I know it's true. And the fact is that there is not a shortage of technicians in the industry. Okay, that's not true. It's not a shortage. Just because you got a big company that goes, man, I could be even bigger if I had 5 more technicians. So they advertise, openings for 5 technicians, does not mean the industry is short of technicians.
Yep.
It means that there's a disproportionate distribution between where technicians work and where service calls are going.
Oh, right? You nailed it right there. I agree with you 100%.
So the fact is that as I get bigger, right, it's just like Monopoly, right? When you're playing Monopoly, pretty soon who's going to win, right? Because I got all the good properties, I got this fat stack, and you're over there hoping you hit go each time, right? So you can stay in another round, but eventually we know who's going to win. So you take that and you take critical size and mass in our industry today, and you take a company that's doing $25-30 million in a marketplace, and the amount of marketing budget that they have is that they can basically eclipse mid-sized contractors, because the way that consumers up until very recently now with some of the things that we're doing and changing is that consumers are still going to Google and they're searching and they're not even seeing these other contractors because I've got so much marketing money that I'm eclipsing you, right? But what happens, Jay, is that there's no formulation on, do I have the workload to be or do I have the workforce to be actually able to provide the level of service that those customers are looking for? So instead, I'm taking in more than 100% of my volume that I can run in a day, and I'm booking it into tomorrow and into the next day, when in reality, the customer is in a non-discretionary situation. They need service today. They need service now. So the ability, what Fixify does is it gives the ability to increase the amount of productivity without decreasing the performance. So if you think about it, if you had 40 techs and they could each run 1 or 2 more service episodes a day because of what it does for productivity and increase the performance, now you've got something, right? Now you don't need more technicians.
Absolutely.
And then there's another change coming that we see too, and that's going to be in the way that the workforce starts to demand and require that their lifestyle gets to be lived. If you go on DJ and you ever look at any of these companies, you pick any company you want. You go to any town and you go to Indeed and you look for HVAC companies hiring, and then you look at what employees say about their work-life balance rating. They all suck. They all suck, right? And the reason is why? We brought in more calls than we can do today. I got to pressure my workforce to work, more than 100% of productivity today, so that I can bring in as much as I want, so I don't lose those customers. And in reality, what happens? You get guys that feel like they're burned out. You get guys that don't see their families, and
get it all the time.
It happens all the time. So the ability to increase productivity is the first thing. But the other thing is that we believe that an on-demand environment is coming, Jason. The only reason customers have had to use booking into the future is because there was no on-demand environment available. And when really forward-thinking contractors will adopt our philosophies and use our tools, they'll be able to offer a job quality of life to a technician that's going to make them want to leave where they're at and come to work there. if you think about it, like why leave one company and go to another? What, for another $1 an hour or $2 an hour? The low man on the totem pole.
Yep.
I'm never gonna see my family. I can't go on vacation when I want to. We're trying to help change that so
Absolutely.
that we can really an awesome group of workforce, younger people that are coming up that don't have to have hard selling skills to still be able to make great money and make it very profitable for the contractor.
So Darrin, as we're wrapping up this podcast, I got over 10,000 listeners, business owners, technicians, everyone across the board. This is some amazing stuff. For some of my listeners tuning in on this podcast, how can they reach out to maybe look at a startup video or a training? How can they go about signing up for something like that and seeing what Fixify could actually do for them?
Cool. So go to Fixify.pro, right? It's FYXIFY.pro. Not only will you get an overview, but you also can set up a demo call, which is really a discovery call first, right? So we'll talk, no pressure, man. But I will tell you this, everybody that's checking this out, they dig it. And it's because anybody who really knows about growing, what it takes to grow an that is starting to produce higher levels of volume understands that consistency is absolutely the key. And you've got to have consistency. And, the other thing I'll add, Jay, just, at the end of this rant is that Fixify is designed with enough flexibility to provide contractors consistency in the way they want things to happen in their business, right? So it's not like a franchise where you come and go, oh, this is how it is, right? To the system that allows contractors to continue to have familiar aspects of their business, but we enhance it by improving the performance of everything that happens in the field. So
yeah, I know that once Alan Crick saw the sample, he was all gung-ho about it, posted it on social media. I have a lot of respect for that guy. And I have a lot of respect for what you're doing in this industry because you're consistently changing lives, right? You're adapting, you're finding issues in this industry that need to be better, and you're putting in the action behind it, Darrin. So thank you for everything that you do to raise the industry standards. For my listeners out there, my business owners, my technicians, my comfort advisors, my dispatchers, my installers, what do you want them to get out of this episode of HVAC Masters of the Hustle?
I want them to understand that that someone who cares about every aspect of every person who works in this industry is designing the software. And that's me. I want to tell you that I've mopped the floors, I've cleaned the toilets, I've run the sales calls, I've lifted air conditioners onto the roof, I've crawled through the attic, I've done every single job. And if it weren't for the people of this industry out there doing what they do, then business owners wouldn't have anything, okay? And so when everybody works together like this in a cohesive system, everybody's life gets better. And that's why, like I said before, we look at it as an ecosystem. And how can we keep the ecosystem in balance and make it work better? The industry, Jay, because, look, man, e-commerce is a real thing. And yeah. Either industry experts figure out how to make e-commerce work for contractors, or somebody outside of the industry is going to figure out how to make e-commerce work for consumers. Mm-hmm. And so if we don't figure out how to make, which we believe that we have, if we don't figure out how to make e-commerce work right for the consumer and protect what's so important to the contractor in the form of their margins, things are going to change and not favorably towards the contractor. And that's the key for us, is we're here to provide something that's better for everybody. So, and I appreciate you inviting me here. I always enjoy interacting with you, and I know that you're a well-respected man and very followed. And so to share, what we're doing and your feedback, it's important. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. I can't wait to see what this product does to the industry.